It's me. You guys have missed my smiley face. Sorry that I didn't get this to you by Wednesday. I just had way too many things going on. So Peyton's home. She's actually in the other room right now, and if you see me get up and run, it's because she's been throwing up. So that's really great. But her surgery went okay. She had some trouble with the anesthesia and some trouble with the pain medication, but she's home now. So this is going to be a really quick online class. I sent you attached to this as the PowerPoint, so if you want to print it out or look at it on another computer while we talk, that might help. Mostly tonight's class is about lesson planning, because your next assignment for next week is to plan a lesson for you and one student, so a lesson for one student. So without further ado, our objectives for tonight, we actually, I have on here that we're going to talk about Chapter 9 and Chapter 5, but they weren't super relevant to our assignment for tonight, or really, Chapter 9 was all about course design, and you wouldn't be designing a course or really even designing a class, because that would kind of be designed for you as an ESL teacher. And then Chapter 5 was about intrinsic motivation, which I think we all have a pretty good grasp on. So I'm really going to focus on Chapter 10, which is on lesson planning. And I am going to be referring to some of the materials that I handed out to you last time we met, specifically the SIOP lesson plan, which actually was either in this format, or I also had it in this format, if you remember. And then also the CALA lesson plan, which was in that big packet. Okay, so I'll be referring to those later if you want to get them out. So when we start talking about lesson plans and lesson planning, one of the first things we want to talk about is our goals. And goals are different than objectives, because goals are kind of like the big overarching, like the big idea, like the main idea. Like when we were talking about SLOs, a big idea, that's your goal. How is your lesson designed to contribute to such goals? You want to think about that when you're planning your lesson. The goal may be generalized, and it may provide a context for your lesson or for your teaching. Also, with the format of the lesson, we were going to talk about objectives, which you probably have felt like has been beat to death in your life. You probably did a lot of talking about objectives when you were in undergrad. But it's very important to state explicitly what you want students to gain from the lesson. Explicit statements here can help you. So be sure that you know what it is you want to accomplish. What do you want the students to be able to do or know at the end of the lesson? Preserve the unity of your lesson. You want it to be, or you really want it to flow. This is all not new to you, I'm sure. Predetermine whether or not you're trying to accomplish too much. We often, especially new teachers, do that. They realize that in a 45-minute lesson or a 40-minute lesson, they really can only accomplish maybe half of what they originally wanted to. And then evaluate your students' success at the end of the lesson, or assess them, which we have talked quite a bit about. Objectives are most clearly captured in terms of stating what students will do or what they will perform. So, you know, a lot of times our lessons in lesson plans say, or objectives in lesson plans will say, the students will be able to, or the students will be able to perform. Those are words that we use a lot. Try to avoid being vague or unverifiable. Don't use unverifiable statements. If you say, the students will know how to use the passive voice, well, what does that look like? How are you going to quantify that, or how are you going to evaluate that? And then you always want to be cognizant of your materials and your equipment that you have. Do you have what you need to teach the lesson in the way you want to teach it? And then as you're going through your procedures, do you have an opening statement or activity as a warm-up? Do you have a set of activities and techniques in which you've considered appropriate proportions of time? You know, remember, it's going to take longer than 5 minutes to teach background vocabulary or whatever it is. And then make sure you have classwork, small group work, pair work, prayer work, teacher talk, student talk, some of the stuff you're going to include in there. And then, of course, in your format of a lesson, you have assessment, which is very important. We talked a lot about that last class. And then at the end, extra classwork, homework, independent practice is always part. These are just kind of the key elements. There's lots of different ways to format a lesson. These are kind of just the key elements that the book included. So for our assignment for next week, if you want to refer to the rubric, which is on page 13, I'm going to go through each step with you. This week's lesson should not be hard for you because all of you have done a lesson before. The only thing that might be different is that we're going to ask you to use the CALA or the SIAP lesson template. So that might be a little bit of a difference for you. You're going to develop a lesson plan for use for one-on-one with a K through 12 ELL student. Use either the SIAP or CALA lesson plan template. You'll be teaching this lesson next week. So this actually teaching the lesson is the assignment that's due the following week, okay? So make sure you make it applicable to the student that you plan to work with. Don't plan a 7th grade science lesson if you're going to use it with a fifth grader and you're going to do vocabulary development for language arts, all right? I want you to concentrate this lesson and make it a vocabulary lesson. Vocabulary is, you'll find out when we have our people come talk to us, but overwhelmingly, it's the biggest part of being an ESL teacher is focusing on vocabulary and focusing on vocabulary development. So you can choose either vocabulary from language arts, math, science, or social studies for your EL lesson. Feel free to look online for ESL vocabulary lessons and copy, use, steal, whatever the word is you want to use. You don't have to invent the wheel here. If you want to try something you've never tried before, this is a great opportunity. If you remember us talking about the language experience approach, the LEA, and you're like, oh, that'd be great to try, look it up, see what it is, and use it. So really try to kind of broaden your horizons on different teaching techniques. You can also pull out, I passed this out. I was going to really use more for our last class, which is the mini lessons, but there's some good ideas in here too about vocabulary and teaching it at different grade levels. So use that also to help you with ideas, and you can always email me and ask me. I'll get back to you too. I'm really just sitting home this weekend with my daughter, so I'll be available. Using online resources, as long as the lesson is applicable and relevant to your student, that's what's most important about this lesson that you're planning. After completing the lesson plan itself, I want you to complete a separate write-up, which is basically the rubric on page 33. Okay, so for this last assignment, many of you just used this format and just filled it in. That's fine. If you rather do a heading with a narrative, that's fine also. What you handed in last time was perfect. The program data part right here, that should include the type of ESL program in the school and any other relevant data. So that shouldn't be new to you because that's pretty much what your first assignment was on, the curriculum design. The environment data, this part, should include the environment in which the lesson will take place and any other relevant data. So are you pulling the student out? Are you pushing into the classroom and working one-on-one in the back of the room? What is the environment? What are the other students doing? Those kind of things. So the environment. And then student data should include information, so this one, about the student, including, I'd like to know if you know like their prior years in the program, like were they bilingual students that transitioned? Were they, are they currently in a bilingual classroom? What are their current services? If you know their access proficiency level, that would be good information. So include anything you have or that you know about the student here. This right here, the lesson data, that's actually the lesson itself, so you don't have to do anything additional here in your write-up. You can just put something like see lesson plan, and same with procedures, because you should have in your lesson plan procedures. Okay? If you choose to use the, actually for both of them, but if you see on here how there's content objectives, you really want to include their Common Core standards, and any Common Core standards that you're trying to relate this to would be here. And then language objectives would be your WIDA standards. You could also just say, you know, the students will be able to, let's say you're doing a vocabulary lesson and it's writing. So students will be able to write the vocabulary words appropriately in a sentence. I don't know, I'm just coming up with something off the top of my head. But and then remember, CALA was all about learning strategies. So if there's specific learning strategies that you're going to be teaching them, so maybe it's well, yeah, if you're doing vocabulary, it's maybe identifying key vocabulary. The learning strategy is identifying key vocabulary within context of a paragraph or something. And then just make sure you include these questions here. If you choose to use the SIOP lesson, it's kind of the same. Make sure you include content objectives, which would be your Common Core. Language objectives would be your WIDA standards. This one doesn't have learning strategies on there, but whatever the key vocabulary words you're going to be hitting, you'd fill in there. Any supplementary materials, and then these are all features of SIOP. If you check any of these, please make sure you give some description down below, maybe before the lesson sequence. You can either take this and fill it in, like just take your copy and write it in, or if you want to make your own copy that you'll be able to use in the future, then just add an area for further information. So for instance, if you checked scaffolding modeling, so under scaffolding, this first one right here, I would just want an explanation either here or in your lesson sequence on how you're going to do that. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So again, if you have any questions about these, let me know. You guys can have until the end of the day on Friday to hand them in, but we will be meeting on the 8th. On the 8th, we have 2 ESL teachers, both from Riverwood. One shares Riverwood Valley View, Melissa Grice and Sarah Rinn, and they're coming with 2 of their bilingual teachers so that you can get a sense of how the ESL teachers often collaborate with other teachers. And then we'll be going over chapters 15 and 16. And then the assignment that will be due the following week then will be, so that would be the 15th, I believe, will be actually doing the lesson that you're planning for this week. So not too bad, not too much. I'm available. Call me if you need me. Email me. I think that's it. I hope you don't have any trouble viewing this. I wasn't able to get the podcast on at work, so I decided just to make a YouTube video. So hopefully this won't be too boring, and it's not too long. So have a wonderful day and a lovely Easter, and I will see you guys real soon. Okay? Thanks. Bye.